right. I want everyone to start rolling their shoulders. Breathe a little bit. I got some water. Take a sip. Unwind a little bit. Are you doing all right? Okay, good. Because we're talking about PlayStation and people tend to get upset about those types of things. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think PlayStation's getting a bit out of touch. Now, hold your horses, okay? If you are writing off PlayStation for the entire generation or you're writing them off at all, let's come back down to planet Earth, okay? They just gave us a full generation of top-tier exclusives. Bloodborne, Spider-Man, Horizon, God of War. They've delivered continuously. I think they deserve a bit of a longer leash before we really go, whoa, they're gone, see you later. But with that said, over the last number of weeks, we've seen some really questionable actions and reports about PlayStation, and now it warrants a conversation for sure. So a lot of this began with a topic I've focused a lot on the channel because I care about the Vita a lot, but they shut down the Vita, the PSP, and the PS3 digital storefronts. And so now those physical copies are going to go up in price. If you already own games digitally, you can access those. But point being is a lot of people went, all right, this sucks, but at the end of the day, PlayStation's always marched to a different beat than Xbox when it came to back compat. Sure, fair, and I agree with that. It's not the end of the world. It's just going to hurt prices when it comes to physical games because they're already expensive as it is, and without cons and stuff to balance it out, you're just only going to have to go online where people are going to skyrocket those prices. But whatever, we can live. Then we see PlayStation in a place where they're typically dominant, making more of a Western focus. So Japan is one of the places that PlayStation has a strong foothold in. And now we're seeing them shift more to the US. And one of the moves that really indicated that was the closing down of Studio Japan, where they're moving a lot of the staff for Knack and Ape Escape completely off the hook. And they're just saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and make the Astrobot team a separate studio, but otherwise they're closing down Japan Studio. That team brought us a lot of great stuff. Really weird choice because what PlayStation was built off of was these big heavy hitting exclusives with a lot of niche, tinier exclusives, indie titles in the mix there, and they had a really good system going. We also learned through an ex-Sony employee that the PS Vita did not have to meet the fate that it did, which was pretty much being intentionally axed internally. So there was a big cultural impact when the PSN hack happened in 2011, and what led to this was really PlayStation becoming fearful of any types of hacks. So when people were starting to break open the Vita, they went, that's it, kill it, it's done, it's over, and they completely abandoned the system as we saw. If that never happened, believe it or not, we may be talking about the Vita to this day because this employee also stated that the Vita was more profitable than the PSVR on a 4-to-1 basis. That's pretty impressive. So the Vita was actually making more money for Sony than what was actually reported from people, and I thought that was interesting. So we're seeing stuff like that happen when the Vita store was closed down. Lily Mo Games' Barry Johnson had reported to IGN that, hey, we had no idea this was even happening. So Sony failed to communicate internally. So there's been a lot of bad looks. None of them kisses of death, but bad looks. Today, though, is the start of a downward spiral that's really being marked by a particular event, I would say. So, Sony, like I said, has brought us a lot of great exclusives, but now they're taking it to a whole different level that I'm not sure I'm a fan of and that many people are a fan of, and there's a lacking of creative exploration here that while they will deliver is going to hurt them, okay? It's going to hurt them. So let's talk about this Bloomberg article from Jason Schreier. It's titled, Sony's obsession with blockbusters is stirring unrest within the PlayStation empire. The article begins by saying, Sony Corp's Visual Arts Service Group has long been the unsung hero of many hit PlayStation video games. The San Diego-based operation helps finish off games designed at other PlayStation-owned studios with animation, art, or other content and development. But about 3 years ago, a handful of influential figures within the Visual Arts Service Group decided they wanted to have more creative control and lead game direction rather than being supporting actors on popular titles such as Spider-Man and Uncharted. Michael Mumbauer, who took over direction of Visual Arts Service Group in 2007, recruited a group of about 30 developers internally and from neighboring game studios to form a new development unit within Sony. The idea was to expand upon some of the company's most successful franchises, and the team began working on a remake on the 2013 hit The Last of Us for the PlayStation 5. but Sony never fully acknowledged the team's existence or gave them the funding and support needed to succeed in the competitive video game market, according to people involved. The studio never even got its own name. Instead, Sony moved ownership of The Last of Us remake to its original creator, Naughty Dog, a Sony-owned studio behind many of the company's best-selling games and an HBO television series in development. Let's pause just for a second. Okay, let's run down a quick list off the cuff here of dead PlayStation franchises, okay? Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, SOCOM, Gravity Rush, what else is there? Days Gone Now, we'll get into that one in a little bit. Legend of Dragoon, some of the Team Eco games. I mean, dude, the list goes on. My boy Sly Cooper is chilling in his grave, and you're fucking remaking The Last of Us from 2013. By all intents and purposes, that's not even a retro game at this point. It's not. By the time maybe we see it, it will be, but it's not. Why are we remaking a 2013? Dude. Oh my God, please. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but man, really, why? Why? I'll tell you why. It's because of the TV show. PlayStation sees the money. Sony sees the money here. There's a lot to be made. The Last of Us, no matter what you say about The Last of Us Part 2, I thought it was solid. Was not great. Did not like it as much as the first one by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought it was an alright game. But The Last of Us is insanely popular. It sells ridiculously well, and its TV show is going to give it that same surge, I guarantee it, like The Witcher got from its Netflix series. And when that happens, if you got a remake sitting there, a remake that this article suggests would be packaged into The Last of Us Part 2 in this whole complete edition, yeah, that's going to sell like hotcakes and make the company a lot of cash. So that's why they're doing it. That's why my boy Sly Cooper, he got his TV show shut down. They decided to not make another one. He's dead and gone. That's it. God forbid. I mean, oh my God. It's not even that, man. I know I'm a diehard Sly Cooper fan. I've been trying to will a new one into existence, but The Last of Us, I love the first Last of Us. There's a point where you have to give us time to miss it. There's a time where we have to miss it, forget about it. But also, with the most appealing part of a remake, I think we can all agree, even if you're in favor of this idea, is taking something maybe rough or that's aged and saying, hey, how can we shape this out a little bit? Make it a little bit better. Okay, that's why we've seen them become more popular. Something like Final Fantasy VII Remake was really popular because it took the turn-based mechanics and turned them into action combat with turn-based elements, and it felt like an evolution of what that type of combat could be. It was very forward-thinking. It explored its characters on a deeper level. It was much more impressive graphically because the game's been around since the 90s. So yeah, it may have been time for a remake. By the way, remake Final Fantasy IX. Point being, though, is with The Last of Us, we didn't even see in The Last of Us Part 2 this expansion of major gameplay mechanics that you could say, hey, retroactively, let's add that into the first one. That didn't happen. So what are they remaking? Deflated, the small group's leadership has largely disbanded, according to interviews with 8 people familiar with the operation. Many, including Mumbauer, have left the company entirely. Mumbauer declined to comment, and the others asked not to be named, discussing private information. A representative for Sony declined to comment or provide interviews. Sony's focus on exclusive blockbusters has come at the expense of niche teams and studios within the PlayStation organization, leading to high turnover and less choice for players. Last week, Sony reorganized a development office in Japan, resulting in mass departures of people who worked on less well-known but acclaimed games such as Gravity Rush and Everybody's Golf. The company has informed developers that it no longer wants to produce smaller games that are only successful in Japan, Bloomberg has reported. Oh my God, dude. Those are some of the best games they made, man. Like Gravity Rush. It's very expensive physically, by the way, if you're ever interested in it. But Gravity Rush is so unique. It's a personality game. It's what they call a prestige project. Like, you'll see websites do it. Hey, I do it on my own channel. This may not do well, but it's something that rewards your core audience. It rewards them. And while it may not be the most major for-profit play, you do it because it builds the image. It builds the fact that you care and you're showing you care. It builds that you have heart in this. I know that may not sound business savvy, but every company in their right mind does prestige projects. The sense of over-delivering, making the customer feel like they're valued. That type of stuff is really important. Saying no more niche Japan studio stuff, dude, dangerous move. I'm telling you right now. You'll still get your Spider-Man. They'll still be good. Ratchet and Clank, Horizon, they'll still be great. I have no doubt about that. But these types of games are what rounded them out, right? They rounded them out. They refined them. Not only that, it gave you something different than third-person open world. As much as I love them, they're all third-person open world games with like different slices, different little feels. Superhero open world. You have Days Gone, a post-apocalyptic open world. You've got semi-open world with a god. You know, there's all these different cuts of open world. So, yeah, man, I don't know. The diversity is really important with that. Instead, one team at the studio was assigned to help Naughty Dog with a multiplayer game, while a second group was assigned to work on a new Uncharted game with supervision from Naughty Dog. And as we're seeing when it comes to Days Gone's studio, Bend, a lot of people are leaving. The director left at the end of last year, and it's starting to make sense as to why. As we continue this article, they say this fixation on teams that churn out hits is creating unrest across Sony's portfolio of game studios. Oregon-based Sony Bend, best known for 2019 open-world action game Days Gone, tried unsuccessfully to pitch a sequel that year, according to people familiar with the proposal. Although the first game had been profitable, its development had been lengthy and critical reception was mixed. So, a Days Gone 2 wasn't seen as a viable option. Hey, let's talk about that for a second, because as much as I didn't like Days Gone, part of its critical reception falls entirely on fucking Sony's shoulders, okay? Because they gave out review codes when this game was busted. It was completely broken. And they had plenty of time to fix it, because throughout the review process, they dropped a patch or two. Day one, they dropped another patch. I went back, tried it out. It was better, but it was still different from the experience that we as reviewers had. But still, it's our job to report, hey, this wasn't good, or this wasn't as playable as I would have liked it to be. And so that falls on them that the game wasn't as critically well received, because then word of mouth really carried this game. Shout out to the fans of Days Gone, because they're the ones who put it out there. The fact that there isn't going to be a sequel sucks, because this is the perfect game for a sequel. It had some really good ideas. It had clearly a rough development cycle, but that's where a sequel is beautiful. It found a way to succeed. The people believed in it. Give them a shot. But they don't. And now, here's what they're doing. At the time, Naughty Dog was in the thick of development on the sequel, The Last of Us Part 2, which would introduce higher fidelity graphics and new gameplay features. If Mumbauer's crew remade the first game to have a similar look and feel, the two games could have been packaged together for the PlayStation 5. In theory, this would have been a less expensive proposition than remaking Uncharted, which they suggested in this article as well, since The Last of Us was more modern and wouldn't require too many gameplay overhauls. Then, once Mumbauer's group had established itself, it could go on to remake the first Uncharted game and other titles down the road. But those who had wanted independence were disappointed. By the end of 2020, most of the T1X team's top staff had left. By the way, T1X is the code name for the project that they were working on, including Mumbauer and the game's director, David Hall. Today, T1X project remains in development at Naughty Dog, which is the remake of The Last of Us Part 1, with assistance from Sony's Visual Arts support group. The future of the remainder of Mumbauer's team, which has jokingly been referred to as Naughty Dog South, remains unclear. So you have a company like Bend, which is very successful, that's now been crunched down to a support studio to help on projects like this. Even though their last game was profitable and has potential, they said nope. They shut down Japan studio, and they're just focusing on these heavy hitters. Like, how? I'm sorry, but even if you're the most diehard PlayStation fan watching this, how are you not concerned? Answer that. How are you not concerned? I'm not talking about the quality, right? The quality will be there. How are you not concerned about the variety of offerings? And I don't want to sign them out yet because, right, we're still waiting for a Game Pass competitor. They're going to do something along those lines, and that will be very exciting to see, whatever that is. But we don't know if that'll be good. I trust it'll be something competitive. But really, take a good, long gander at some of the actions happening. And you may say, well, these are just reports. They're not squishing niche titles. Okay, well, here's a good example. Remember Concrete Genie? This is a little title that released back in 2019, end of 2019. Not a lot of people talked about it, reviewed really well though, but its embargo lifted on October 8th. And usually when you want to pull the lid off the embargo and say like, hey, here's what the reviews are coming, that's your day for people to hear about your game, to get it out there, to have more people say, hey, this looks good, I'm going to pick it up, because the reviews did end up being good. Guess what they dropped that same day? Guess what PlayStation did the same day the embargo lifted? Showing clearly, one, a lack of internal communication, but B, the desire to squish out these niche titles because they're not going to be as successful as The Last of Us. An update on next gen. PlayStation 5 launches in holiday 2020. Guess what everyone was talking about on that fucking day? PlayStation 5. Can you blame them? No. No one cared at all about Concrete Genie. I don't know if the game ended up being successful, but it's this idea within PlayStation that small successes cannot exist. And that's weird to me, that little profits are not as valuable as big profits. Of course, there is a favoritism there internally, and there is a desire to get the big ones right. But the idea that that's completely lost on them, that, hey, this small thing can become a big thing. Let's take Jak and Daxter. Was Jak and Daxter popular when it was just like Jak and the Precursor Legacy or whatever? Was that popular when it was just a PS2 game, platformer? Until Jak 3, we had the light and dark powers, and it was something much more crazy. And then it led to Jak X Combat Racing. Come on. You know, that type of stuff doesn't happen overnight. You build the success. Much like a lot of PlayStation fans like to tell Xbox fans, why are you spending your money? Why don't you just go ahead and build the talent? PlayStation, take your own advice, right? Build these series. And most of them are established and popular, and people want to see them come back. They're out of touch, man. They got to get back on track. So have faith. Their games will be fine, but I wanted to share some thoughts in this video here today. So let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. I'm interested to see your thoughts. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.